Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Coast to Coast podcast. Making some little bit of history right here. This is the first time in show history we are live. This is something we hope to continue in the future as long as it goes well here. So, if you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, basically wherever there's podcasts, just know that you can catch us live. Tentatively, the schedule is going to be right around 10:15 Eastern time every Monday. There'll be a couple other shows, of course, during the week. So you can always catch us live here. You can comment, follow along, and you can get involved with the show as it goes. So looking forward to a good one tonight. I'm joined by Philip and Eric, cousin Phil, as always. Here we go.
Thinks the earth is flat, so it never sat well with me.
Do you want a company that refuses to use your call box?
Or have to be patient. I don't understand why Chelsea gave him the tax so quickly.
You want to know who's the cheap shots, Greg? Christian Laettner. You want to know who everybody talks about? Christian Laettner. You want to know who's one of the best basketball players ever in college? Christian Laettner.
All right, so first topic of the evening here. This is something that I was just kind of over social media the other day, and I was kind of shocked that this got overlooked or glossed over, I guess is a better word. And that's Andy Reid and Andy Reid's son / also assistant coach, Britt Reid, during the Super Bowl. This was a topic that was just not really discussed during the absolute pounding that the Chiefs endured during the Super Bowl. And I guess my first question, I'll lead this off to you, Philip. Obviously, it's a sensitive subject with what happened. There's a 5-year-old girl that was involved in a car accident with Andy Reid's son. Turns out Andy Reid admitted to having a couple drinks before getting behind the wheel, which obviously not a good thing. And I'm just kind of mind blown in hindsight that this didn't get enough attention during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Tony Romo and the broadcast booth, they didn't mention it till like 8 minutes into the fourth quarter or something, and I had no idea that this was an event that had taken place. So I was kind of shocked, and yeah, I don't know why it wasn't brought up or mentioned, at least in regards to this 5-year-old girl that's kind of fighting for her life right now and kind of bringing awareness and maybe helping that, but also, and this is the question I had for you two, because you two coach sports. What kind of impact would that have on Andy Reid from the organization, like having something that big happen 2 days before the event of the game? Like, how do you feel that impacted it, or did it?
I definitely think it has an impact. I mean, number one, it's his son, which probably magnifies it by however much. But isn't it the point of, did the Kansas City Chiefs look like they were prepared? Like, they didn't look like they were prepared to play in the Super Bowl. And then on top of it, whether it's the head coach's son or just any other coordinator / coach on the team is out a couple nights before the biggest game of the year, if not their career, and making just terrible choices. Like, where was his head at? And, it's not just a mistake. Like, this isn't one of those, hey, it happens, this guy made a mistake. I mean, this is something that's really serious and unfortunately goes on in 2021 with everything that we have out there, knowing, what drinking and driving can do. Like, this isn't 1970 when all of our parents grew up. It's not cool to just hop in the driver's side and have 5 people in the back of your pickup.
And I think it's fair to say he can afford a lift.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't want to make light of drinking and driving, but that's for some people why they do it, because they can't afford it, or poverty and things like that. But you have the money. We talk about good decisions. Like, yeah, if you're going to go out the couple nights before the Super Bowl, because hopefully you've already prepared and gotten your game plans and stuff in a row. But I mean, the day before, you have to be studying a ton. But you would think, if you're going to do that, call a lift.
Call anything. I mean, it blows my mind because there's two things that blow my mind. First, that it happened. Like, again, Eric mentioned it, possibly one of the biggest games you're ever going to coach in your career. But in terms of this not getting enough attention, it's not like this was a thrilling game. It's not like there was tons of topics to discuss. I mean, this game was over essentially at halftime, definitely over in the fourth quarter. And you have the Chiefs, who basically probably 90% of the universe expected to win that game, getting absolutely manhandled and destroyed. And you have the head coach that's dealing with this absurd event, tragic event, And it's like, this is a topic. Like, there's obviously something wrong with the Chiefs. And I'm not saying this is why the Chiefs weren't prepared, but I mean, it's worth exploring a little bit. It's worth talking about a little bit. That Chiefs team didn't look prepared to play in the game at all. Where were the second half adjustments? Like, there was no life out there. If I told you Patrick Mahomes wasn't going to throw for a touchdown in the first half, and it was basically second half was going to go the exact same way as the first half, you'd call me an idiot. But that's exactly what happened. So I don't know. I don't understand why CBS. I just don't understand why this wasn't talked about.
But haven't we learned something from this past year, like using platforms to get a message across? Like, obviously the Chiefs were not prepared. They could have talked about it and they could have put that on it. But this is a platform that, millions upon millions of people are watching, including the fourth quarter, because like Phil said last week, when were the Chiefs going to come back? Like, when were all of a sudden they going to score 17 points in 5 minutes? Nobody was turning the game off. But get away from sports and go, this is an issue. And I've got children, and I can't imagine that little girl woke up that day, her parents woke up that day having no idea what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And we didn't use it. I mean, I'm sorry, some of the best learning lessons that you can have are from somebody else's mistake. And they just, like you said, completely blew through it and completely missed an opportunity to get through to millions upon millions of people.
Conspiracy theory. I got one just now.
Love it.
Roger Goodell told him not to talk about it, told him to downplay it, to talk about it minimally. He didn't want to take away from the game. He doesn't want that shining a light on the NFL because people are drinking and driving. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, knowing how incompetent of a commissioner he is and how image oriented he is when it suits him, that he encouraged them to not make it a point of conversation.
That's fair, but just with the context and I mean, just the game flow itself, like, it should have been a conversation. The reason why I'm going to say that is, I coached a whole year where my mom was dying of cancer. And looking back on that year, it was the worst year of coaching I've ever had, results wise. And as it's happening, as I'm going through that season, I'm thinking, no, I am not distracted right now. I am level-headed. I'm making the same decision I would make if I wasn't dealing with this life-altering event. And now looking back on it 2 years later, I look at some of the decisions I made and I'm like, wow, that was not me. I would never make that decision right now if I wasn't thinking clearly. And so I just look at how that Super Bowl went. And again, maybe the Chiefs are going to get destroyed no matter what. Personally, that's not believable to me. Like,
maybe it contributed to that call at the 2-minute warning, like at the second quarter, where you're like, what are you doing?
Timeout 3rd and 2.
Yeah. Timeout, giving the Bucs more time to score. I didn't understand it.
I mean, that was terrible. I mean, you watch the Packers made that mistake the week before or 2 weeks before in the NFC Championship. So I was shocked to see that move. But when you're going through these major family or off-field events, like, and again, I'm speaking for myself here, but I think coaches oftentimes think they're in control. They think they're handling it all, and they don't realize till after they're not. And just for the Chiefs to just not look anything like the Chiefs for that, I can't sit back and say like that didn't affect Andy Reid's performance during the game, which is why it just bothers me so much that announcers and media didn't want to talk about it at all. Like, obviously it's something that should be talked about because, as you both said, like, it's a serious problem in our country, obviously, drinking and driving. But even if you don't want to touch on that and you don't want to try to take away from the game, as Philip Kyrie Irving conspiracy theory just said, if that's what Roger Goodell wanted, like, within the game flow and game context, you can be talking about it. You have a million reasons to talk about it. And I don't know, it should have been talked about. And the more I think about it, it actually starts bothering me more and more, as you can tell.
Yeah.
But, all right, moving on. As we know, it's NBA season right now, and the NBA is shockingly planning an all-star game. I say shockingly because in the year of COVID, this seems like one completely unnecessary event that we do not need. On the show outline I typed, is this a bad idea or a terrible idea? Like, is there any reason for us to have an all-star game right now?
There's not a reason for us to have an all-star game, period. It's like one of the worst displays of basketball If you want to see bad basketball, just go to your 24 gym where you just want to watch people play offense and never play like a second of defense. It's I don't know why they have it. This isn't like competitive like the old All-Star games that I grew up on. I don't want to feel like the old man on the porch where you messed around for the first 2 quarters and then you turn it on the second half or at least the fourth quarter where it got competitive. These games never feel competitive. It just looks like an exhibition game of everyone just kind of palling around, jacking up shots, no one playing defense, and it's not very fun to watch for the most part. So to do that during COVID, it's NBA wants to make money, and there's no reasonable explanation why they should do it. But no,
I was shocked. This seems like one of the most unnecessary things, and you touched on it. Like I was gonna say, I don't even watch. I stopped watching the All-Star game a long time ago. I think in like 7th grade, I was really excited to watch the All-Star game because Kevin Garnett was the best player in the NBA, and I watched like maybe 2, and I was like, man, like this is pickup basketball. Like there's no need. Like I don't even know. Do you want to know?
Do you want to know the score of the last All-Star game in 2019?
Wasn't it like 200 to?
Yeah, in 19 it was 178 to 164, and in 2020 157 to 155. I think that one actually was entertaining at the end because of the new format they had.
Yeah,
but
they're definitely trying to make it better. I mean, the new formats, the captains, things like that. But I didn't realize this, with the 30 pods that they have, you're talking about taking a player or 2 from each of those pods, sending them to Atlanta. How many games have already been canceled with all of these little pods that are separating all these guys? And I'm going to be honest, the NBA, probably out of every other major sporting event, has really done it the right way. Like they said, nope, we're going to the bubble. Like we're going to finish our season. Yeah, it's going to be really hard. They did their best they could when the playoffs came. They got families in. Like I thought Adam Silver literally stepped back and said, how can I keep my players as happy as we can, having a product out there, kind of getting life to somewhat, some sort of normalcy. But now, like you completely just, all the work you just did over the last 11 months is going to go right out the window. And I get it. They're going to do some fundraising for the HBCU and stuff for COVID relief. It's all fan voting. So Klay Thompson, by the way, is the 9th pick right now in the backcourt. The guy was hurt. Did he even play a game? Was it?
No, he's not going to play. He's not going to play a game this whole year.
So you have the fans voting because Johnny loves Klay Thompson, and it's like, kid, that's impossible. But spin it and go, you can still raise all this money, but instead of votes, why don't you have the MVP as whoever raises the most money?
Well, I wanted to add too that the All-Star game, people have to remember in context, these aren't players that are like super excited to be competitive to show their peers in the world that they're the best in the league. There's like 1 or 2 people every year, or 1 to 3, that are gunning for the MVP. I mean, that's just clear. But everyone else, that's their party weekend. That's their week off. Everyone goes to All-Star weekend like the NBA players because they get to party, they get to hang out with their peers, they go wild. Like there's stories of people like, being hungover like for the All-Star game or like being out really late. And that's why, again, why they're probably not playing defense. So can you imagine they're like, hey, come out of your bubble, come to this area where you're taking 2 players or so from all these places to an environment where they're probably going to want to party. They're probably going to want to go out. They're probably going to want to like live a little because that's what they do every year. That's like the draw to it. They get to get paid to have a mid-season vacation, to go out and get drunk or to do whatever they want. And yeah, so can you imagine as a player if like everything shut down or things like that? You're like, this is not appealing. Like why? Or what about the people that we can't trust? James Harden, that are gonna like possibly
James
get
Harden's going to be throwing the parties for All-Star.
I did want to add one of my favorite things about picking having captains was the last couple of years watching James Harden get picked last almost every year. It's like, wow, look at this MVP that no one wants to play with. I think that says
do the players even want like an All-Star game this year? Like I was curious because it just seems like more of a event to have fun and a vacation, but I got to imagine the NBA is going to be not allowing them to actually do what they normally do during the All-Star break. So I'm curious, like I have not heard that any players actually want this. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns was obviously one of the ones I'm out here in northern Wisconsin. so right next to Minnesota. I mean, he lost his mom to COVID. He's lost a ton of family members, and he came out and basically mocked the NBA for this decision to have an All-Star game. And I have not heard one positive thing about having it.
No, LeBron
Yeah.
said it was a slap in the face.
Yeah, they need to choose who the all-stars are. So you get that on your resume. You get those bonuses in your contract if you're there. You have the selection. You just don't have the game. Like, so you can still say you were an all-star that year. You can still say you were one of the best in the leagues as picked by the fans and the coaches and your peers. But you remove the game, but you keep like that title or that awards, that prestige, because that does go into contracts and other things, which I think is valuable. They should have that. But to have the game, no. Like, put it on hold, save it till the end of the season or something, till after. You could do an expedition during like preseason before if people really wanted to. There are so many things you could do when it's safer to do it.
But like, they didn't even look at this. They're playing 82 games and they've crunched all these games down. And then they looked at it. They're only getting 5 days off. So you're leaving where you're supposed to be quarantining or trying to socially distance. And then they only gave you 5 days off. Like, if the NBA would have said, hey, we're going to go 10 less games, we're going to have an all-star game later in the year, and we're going to give everybody 2 weeks off. The non-all-stars go home to your families. You're there for a week. You come back. You have to quarantine for a week or whatever. There's going to be COVID tests. The all-stars that get picked, hey, you don't get to go see your families, but you get to play in the all-star game, and then you go back to LA, Denver, wherever it may be, and you're going to quarantine. I just think they totally looked at it and went, they literally changed the time frame. They were March 7th. What? But you can't just throw a dart on a calendar and be like, yeah, March 7th is going to be the all-star game, and have no reason or thought process behind like how it's all going to work.
Yeah,
but counterpoint, money.
Money wins.
Minus that counterpoint, I think we're all in agreement that this is just a stupid.
I will not be watching.
Stupid idea. All right, we got a new segment here. This is new. We're going to be doing this once in a while, and this may or not have been inspired by a recent event with me. Maybe not a recent event. I'll explain in a moment. New segment. We're just going to call it Social Media. Share with us your stories. And first, we'll take turns sharing our stories, and there will always be a certain prompt for each time we do this. And this week's prompt is, we want you to share with us your worst experience with someone that lived above or below you or beside you. Basically, apartment style living. What is the worst experience with someone living in the same, we'll say, apartment with you? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you
Or
guys
dorm or things like that.
Yeah.
Or not with you, not a roommate, but like
the annoying neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll let one of you guys go first.
Eric, I'll let you. You're the guest.
And
I'm a
I
gentleman.
appreciate that. So I moved up here to the Seacoast area, New Hampshire, when I was 23. I didn't have enough money. It's a pretty expensive area. So I didn't have enough money to have like my own 1-bedroom apartment. So I got a winter rental in Seabrook, New Hampshire. Shout out to Seabrook and all the fine
I remember that
people
place.
that live there, right? Yeah. G Street in Seabrook, just a shout out to out the complex. So anyway, my work schedule is Saturday morning. I am at work by like 7:30. So, you're up at 6:30, 6 a.m. Like Sunday's the same thing. I'm a baseball coach. And so, Fridays and Saturday nights aren't nights that, we would go out, because obviously you are, working the next day early. However, a young lady and her significant other, whatever he may be, I never caught his name, lived directly next to me. And on Friday nights or Saturday nights, you could bet whatever amount of money you wanted to bet on it, that there would either be an argument, or, for our younger listeners, some wrestling, quote unquote wrestling, going on. And her bedroom must have been directly next to mine, and about paper thin, and it was either yelling and screaming, and I felt like I was a part of the conversations, or yelling and screaming.
Did you ever chime in? Like, no, she's got a point, or hit her with the diamond cutter.
Yeah,
DDTs.
no, I should have. When it got to a point where it would be like 1:30 in the morning, and I actually just started waking up on my own, anticipating them coming in. And every weekend for the 6 months that I lived there, that was a debacle. Every single weekend, I was happy to get out of that place.
That wasn't a bad place. That
No,
would've
it
been
was a
sweet
nice.
this summer, I remember that.
No. I thought it was a good place. So if the owner listens
It
to
was
this,
a great place
was
until 1:30 on Friday or Saturday.
1:30 in the morning. It's not a great place. It's not a great place.
Oh man. Oh, it's gonna be hard to top.
I don't even know if mine's gonna top that. Mine was. We'll get to mine. You're up.
Okay. So first off, let me throw a disclaimer and say that during quarantine times, I think it's great when people want to acquire new skills and get better at things. Not just quarantine, but life in general. If you want to get better at guitar or singing, that's wonderful. Except the roommate, or not the room, the person that lived below us, he always had these times of the day where he would start practicing his music, his guitar, and his singing. And God bless him for trying. But he would just be singing the chorus of I don't know what songs, but like over and over again. He wouldn't. It's like give us the rest of the song at least, but he wouldn't. He would tease you, and it just sounded so bad. And it's like and it was always like when you're like getting ready to settle down, or you're like kind of exhausted, and you're like, wait, what is that? No, stop, please. And it was just right through. So I'm glad he was getting better. No. I'm glad he was putting the time in. I won't say he was getting better, but he was putting the work in. And I just wished he lived somewhere else while he was doing it.
So I have a question. Did you ever like slip like $1 or $2 under his like door with like, hey, good luck, like you would on the street with like a street performer or anything?
Or some like
I
song
should've.
requests.
Yeah, I should have. I should have put on the
Yeah.
door, like, let's get some Oasis. Or no, because I like those songs. Like maybe songs I already hate. It's like the song's already ruined. Like
some
you
Nickelback.
can't. Yeah,
Feel free.
He's probably getting revenge for some nights. I'm not gonna talk about that.
All right. So this is share with us your stories, and the prompt is the worst neighbor experience, someone living below you, above you, or beside you. And I've lived in several different apartments. I'm going to try to make this cast like a very wide net, just in case this individual hears this and watches this. I don't want them to come after me.
Well, now this individual knows that it's someone you know and not a random stranger. Like by casting a wide net, you really shrunk your net.
Yeah. Anyway,
Greg's like, this person knows me. We've held hands together on many occasions.
At this particular point in time, I was living in just an apartment with one upstairs, one below. So you're naturally going to interact with the person above you. I'm on the bottom floor. And just to set the scene here, at one point during the year, there was a sewage explosion in the basement, and I had to kind of stop it, clean, disgusting, one of the worst experiences of my life. Now, the reason that is important is because I want people to understand kind of why my head might jump to sewage with some of the stuff I'm about to tell you. So it's basically two events, same person. The person that was living above me had this awful habit of doing a lot of things up until around 5 in the morning, and then basically sleeping till 4 in the afternoon. One of those things was literally moving every piece of furniture in between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. If you don't believe me, you can ask my fiance, Lauren. You can ask my assistant coaches. I've literally heard one of my roommates at the time banging on the ceiling saying, stop moving your bureau. Like, I don't know what goes on in between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., but it's just redecorating time up there and driving me insane. But anyways, now part of the problem is I think one of the things that goes up on there, but between 2 and 4 a.m., the person ends up like passing out sometimes. Anyways, one of these particular days, everything was moving around and I woke up. And then suddenly I was like kind of like half asleep, like maybe I was mostly asleep. And there's just my face is wet. And I'm kind of like, what the hell is that? And I'm just like sitting there. And I don't know what had happened, but suddenly my ceiling, there's just water pouring through my ceiling, and it is landing directly on my face. Like, I mean, if it was 6 inches over, I would have probably slept through it, but no, it's just smacking against my face. And so, of course, immediately my brain jumps to what happened over the summer, and I'm just like horrified. Like, I think the worst. I think the stuff is coming on me. Turns out the person upstairs had just for literally gone to sleep and forgot to turn off water. And it was just running and of course landing on my face. So that brings me to the second event. And this just kind of gives you an idea of what I was working with at this place. It gets cold up in where I was at the time. It gets very cold. And as I said, this person likes to sometimes, sleep in till like 4 in the afternoon. So one of these very cold days, I was up at 6 in the morning, and I remember walking, brushing my teeth, taking the dog out, and I remember hearing the shower upstairs running, and I'm like, wow, person's up and at 'em this morning. That's impressive. Usually it's not for another 8 hours. I go back to bed. I get up maybe like 4 hours later, and I still hear that shower running upstairs. And I'm just like, well, that's really weird. Like maybe I'm mishearing something. I go to take my shower in the morning. Ice cold water. It's just dead frozen. And so finally, like I go downstairs. I'm like, well, did a pipe freeze? Did something break? And I hear the water running. The person upstairs is still running the water. So at this point, I've already put 2 and 2 together. They've fallen asleep again or passed out or whatever and kept the water on. And so I start texting and then no response. And then I start calling. I'm like, hey, do you have any hot water? I'm trying to like do that like passive aggressive approach. Like, hey, I know you screwed up. Like, I'm not going to call you out on it, but can we fix this? No response. Finally, I call and doesn't pick up. But as soon as after I call, I hear the person upstairs. And they're running across their apartment, turning, and I hear them turn off the water, and I hear you, oh my God. And then I get a text, no, really strange. I'm out of hot water too. What do you think happened? I'm just like, are you kidding me right now? So yeah, that's my worst experience just because of the such blatant, like, do you think I'm not stupid? I can hear literally everything that happens there. I know you remodel every night. Like, come on.
I think he must think you are. He's like, this guy doesn't no clue it's me.
For sure.
Like at some point I just need to be like, hey, listen, you can't fall asleep with the water running, but I don't know, just insane. So again,
that's a big ask.
Yeah. That's this week. Share with us your story prompts. Share with us your worst experience with someone living above, below you, beside you, apartment, neighbor, whatever. Best stories we'll share on next week's episode live. All right. Oh yeah, Philip wanted us to.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So moving on here. Now it's time for the UPS Award of the Week. Take it away, Phil.
Yeah. So for those of you not familiar, the Houston Texans are having some trouble. Deshaun Watson wants to leave, and they're like, you know what, we got to deliver to our fans. We got to, rebuild. We got to show them we can keep or get talent. And you know what? They're like, we got this guy. His name's J.J. Watt. You might have heard of him. 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, generational talent. And they're like, he's not super happy. Maybe we can trade him. Maybe we can rebuild the team. So we saw what Khalil Mack got when he left to go to he left the Bears to go to, or no, wait, he left the Raiders to go to the Bears, got a haul. So they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to release J.J. Watt and not get a single thing for him. One of the generational talents of our era, defensive phenomenon, and they got absolutely nothing. They're like, you know what? Let's just release him because he's not too happy with how this organization is run. Unbelievable. Texans, you've done it again. Your fan base is waiting for you to deliver anything, any shred of competency, and you say, no, not today. Not today.
That was good.
That's a good one.
And that actually brings us to our next topic, the Houston Texans. I mean, if I told you that they had won 4 division titles in the last 6 years, like they just feel so far from that right now. Like they to me, it feels like they are starting to border the Los Angeles Clippers of the 90s, which were voted at one point the worst franchise in professional sports. But, like 3 years ago, The Texans went 11-5, but with what's transpired over the last 18 months, like I just feel like this franchise is headed to the graveyard right now.
There is a clip of Deshaun Watson and JJ Watt, and they're like coming off the field, and Deshaun comes up to JJ and he's like, "Sorry, man." He's like, "No, it's okay." He's like, "No, I'm sorry. We wasted one of your good years, one of your years. Like, I'm sorry we wasted your year." And I mean, that just says so much. Can you imagine, like, you're the star quarterback and you're going to a guy like JJ Watt and apologizing because not because of what you did, but just like the organization, the team as a whole, how it's run, and being like, man, you deserve better. The league deserves better. Like, your legacy, the fans deserve to see you playing at the bigger stages. And we took that away from you. Like, we wasted one of your years because of incompetent owners and how this team is run. It was heartbreaking to see. So I'm glad JJ Watt is a free man. Good.
Has it always been this incompetent though? Like I was looking at it again. You mentioned 4 division titles in the last 6 years. Since they came into existence in 2002, it's 6 division titles, also 6 dead last finishes. Like I mentioned it, to me emotionally, it feels like they're bordering 90s Clippers. But like statistically, it's not. They're nowhere near that right now.
I think the comp is like how the organization was run, right? Like if the Clippers had drafted a generational talent like JJ Watt, they still would have won some games. They still would have been run really poorly, but they still maybe might have made the playoffs, right? Sean Livingston doesn't have that gruesome knee injury. Maybe things are a little bit different. And I think that that's what reflects when you have an organization run that bad, but you have a player like JJ Watt. You get lucky in the draft and get Deshaun Watson in the NFL, where players can't leave as easily as they can in the NBA. That makes them look better than they are. And I think that that's what happens in the NFL and franchises is you get really superstar players that make your organization look run better than it actually is. And that's why so many people leave. That's why, the Browns were so bad for so long, even though when they had good players. The Texans are just a great example of this. And you can go through other franchises and find players that made them look better, but always wanted to leave.
Has Bill O'Brien came out and like said anything since he left the Texans?
He needs to come out and like apologize to every Texans fan ever. However,
I think he's going door to door. I think that's what he's been doing this time.
He has nothing
Without
else.
a mask.
There's no jobs out there for him that are head coaching jobs. But this is what happens when you give one man too much power.
He had one losing season in 6 years before this year. Like, I mean, out of the 6 divisional titles that the Texans had won, O'Brien won 4 of them. And to me, like looking back, it was like the Texans they needed a quarterback. They finally got the guy, and it's like he just like took a grenade to the franchise.
But was it 2017 or 2018 that he took over the GM spot too? I mean, this is like, why are you giving the head coach all the power? Like, it's hard enough to just coach. And I'm not even saying it's all Bill O'Brien's fault in the sense of, like, if you have a GM that does not want your head coach's opinion on scheme and things like that, like how I can run, like type of players I want, kind of look for this, okay, then that's on the GM. But you have all of this on your plate, and now you've got to worry about everything else in the off season. Like, not just here's my opinion. Hey, we've got 2 players that play the same position. Which one do you think you'd rather have? Oh, I'd rather have this one. No, I've got to go find all these guys. And that's a really hard job. I think people overestimate or underestimate how hard that job really is.
Yeah. Saying
that, Bill O'Brien is terrible. Just, you can't miss this bad. And you cannot miss this bad, and you cannot be an owner. I don't think they're like the Clippers, because I don't think anybody wanted to go to the Clippers for, obviously, the owner's beliefs. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're in a sense of like where careers go to die, and it's not run in a negative light in that sense, like a personal negative light. But there's nobody going to Houston. And I mean, they're just going to waste Deshaun's year if they don't get rid of him and they don't get anything for him.
I think maybe Bill O'Brien had one of those Edward Norton from Fight Club moments where he's like, I just wanted to destroy something beautiful.
I mean, it's such a head scratcher, right?
But do you feel good for JJ Watt?
I feel great for JJ Watt.
Yeah,
He's going to the
me too.
Patriots.
I hope he's not going to the Patriots. He can go to the Patriots. It doesn't matter. The Patriots don't have a wide receiver to throw to. So like JJ Watt,
They have
Find
JJ
another
Watt
lacrosse
now.
player.
They're going to
Yes.
throw it to JJ Watt.
right? Throw the ball to JJ. Give the ball to Booby.
All right, that's actually a natural segue here. Speaking of the Patriots, we haven't talked about the Patriots in a decent amount of time here, which is rare for me and Philip.
You're welcome, listeners.
Yeah, you're welcome, everyone. Now that we're in the NFL offseason now. What do you think the Patriots' future at quarterback is right now? And are there any free agents out there that actually get, and for Philip, the Pats fan, like I'm going to list off these names here: Trubisky, Fitzpatrick, Dalton. Like, do any of these names like excite you?
Fitzmagic would excite me.
Yeah, I mean, coming off a good couple of games in Miami.
Dalton, no. A good season in Miami. Dalton, no. Trubisky, oh God, no. If they could find a way to get
was another name. I think
if they could get Deshaun Watson, I think there's talks of the Patriots going for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Does that excite you though?
What's that?
Does that excite you? Jimmy Garoppolo?
God, nothing. The only thing that would excite me would be Deshaun Watson at this point.
Did you want Matt Stafford?
I would be pleased. I wouldn't be excited. It's like, okay, we have a competent quarterback that can throw, but who's he going to throw to? I mean, Eric made the great point. The Patriots don't have a wide receiver, and Tom Brady can turn nobodies into somebodies, but Matthew Stafford can't. Matthew Stafford had Calvin Johnson for a long time, and Marvin Jones. Who's he? I don't know who they're going to throw to. The Patriots have so much money going into this season where we can really see what Belichick can do when he has all the money and hardly any other teams don't. What kind of roster he can build and what he can do with it. So I'm kind of excited to see what he can do with that. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't have a receiver and he doesn't have a quarterback.
So you guys as Patriots fans have to make a decision now. And I'm asking, do you stay with Cam because he's been there and he has a year under what system would be run? Or do you say we get all of our defensive players back? We have that money to spend. Let's go get a guy that isn't an MVP. I don't think Cam Newton's a good quarterback. I thought he was a good quarterback, but I don't think he is anymore.
Yeah, I can't speak for Greg, but I really would enjoy seeing another season of Cam Newton throwing the ball 15 feet above his wide receivers or at their feet. Or
usually at their feet. He usually just spikes it right on the ground.
So is it Stidham? Do you go with Stidham?
So I'm in a very intense minority here. I actually, oh God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. Deep breaths.
If you say Trubisky, I'm done.
No.
I'm leaving.
I'm actually not gonna complain if we stick with Cam Newton. And some of my other friends have absolutely destroyed me for this. And my thought process is you have someone that at one point was an MVP talent. He joined New England when we had no weapons, and it was a COVID year. The Patriots' strengths have been how they game plan, how they practice. And I got to imagine during COVID with all the precautions and everything, I mean, you had no mini camps and all sorts of obstacles here to kind of get things going. And I don't think we really got to see what Belichick could potentially do with Cam. Now, Cam's also this year was coming off surgery. So anytime you have surgery, it's like maybe it's over. Maybe he'll never be the same quarterback that he used to be. I think Bill Belichick, if he decides to stick with Cam Newton, I think it's because he thinks that Cam Newton can get back to a high level of talent. And that would mean that he thinks if they actually do have all the proper time to work together, that he can get it out of them. So
I'll say this. The Patriots were what,
7-9, right?
7-9? 7-9 with Cam Newton in the first year, with no wide receivers, as Eric, you pointed out, and I mentioned, without Hightower, without McCourty, with like 6 defensive players not returning. Now, those 6 defensive players are coming back. You have this cap money that Bill Belichick has that can do a lot with to rebuild the team. And they went 7-9 in a division that's, minus the Jets, is getting better. So I actually think the Patriots with Cam Newton can make the playoffs next year. But I think their ceiling is they win the wild card game and then they lose the next round. That's their ceiling with Cam Newton as their quarterback.
But how many more wins do they get though? So
They
like
can get
you're
to
in
11.
Well, there's a bunch of close games.
There's no chance that Cam Newton gets to 11. It does.
What do you mean?
But it doesn't matter. Cam Newton was
he
the
doesn't
one
fumble against Buffalo. That's
okay, but that's what Cam Newton does. That's what you guys are forgetting.
One extra yard against Seattle.
NFL.
That's a win.
Welcome to the NFL. Like welcome to the NFL. The 20 years is over. If Carson Wentz didn't whatever Carson Wentz decided to do. And you should, because I feel like this is what I've waited for. I've been on here. This is my third time on here. I've had to say Tom Brady this, Tom Brady that, which obviously, but you are going to get with those defensive players back. You can even sign a good wide receiver. Cam Newton is your quarterback. He's an average quarterback. That means two more wins. 9-7 is not going to get it done.
I sense an opening here. So are you saying right now the Patriots aren't going to make the playoffs next year?
How many teams make the playoffs? 7 or 6? 6, no shot with Miami and Buffalo in the division.
Okay.
7, possibly, because you could sneak in at 9-7, but the Browns wouldn't have made it at 10-6 this year.
I think the Patriots are going to make the playoffs next year. I don't think.
So do we put a 1-year or 11-month bet, like poetry bet on this?
Yes, that's where I was headed with this. Okay. Precisely.
Okay.
Loser choose. Actually, we'll let Philip, the neutral, and this one choose the topic.
Sweet. I'm out of this. All right. Yeah, you two go on it.
Well, no, I'm not. I mean, you can do the poem instead.
No. You got it. You got it. I'll choose the topic. That's settled.
You think 11 wins? 11?
I think it's possible. I think if they won 7, again, with the cap money, with a second year in the system, with those defensive players coming back, and Bill Belichick, let's not forget, is still the head coach. I think he can get to 11. I mean, the Jets, there's 2 wins. They'll split with Miami. There's 3. They'll probably split with Buffalo. I think that they can find them. I think that they can get those wins. And I mean, the AFC is not super stacked and loaded once you get outside of KC.
I will give you that. I'll give you the AFC is not stacked.
I think this is the most pressure Belichick has been on in the last 15 years. Like he has to perform this year.
And the Pats had to play the NFC West last year, which was stacked, right? They had the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the Rams, the Niners. Like that is a rough thing. So they're not going to have those 4 games. They're going to be at another division. I mean, what if they get the Cowboys, Jets, and Giants and stuff next year? Like the
Cowboys are preseason Super Bowl champs every season, so we know that. So
I think with Belichick and that money, if Cam does come back, if they do take him back, even though he was on a 1-year deal, so we don't know if he's actually going to, I think Belichick's going to shop around. I think it's unlikely we get Cam back, but I think if we do, I think regardless of who the quarterback is, with the situation that they have, they can make the playoffs at 11 wins or maybe 10. But I think their ceiling's low. I think like maybe they win the wild card game, but that's the absolute best, and I wouldn't bet on it.
I suggest to all of our listeners going and finding Netflix and watching the show Last Chance U. And in the 3rd season, there's a JUCO coach that he ends up losing his job. He's not a very nice guy, but he says it's about Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's. And if you don't have a quarterback, you don't win in this league.
Rex Grossman begs to differ.
Trent Dilfer. Well, again, that's just
okay. So you just named 2. I'll take my odds.
Touche.
I will take my odds.
Good point. All right, final segment of the week here. It's time for some trivia, and the first two questions. There's a theme. It was negative 16 degrees when I drove into work today. It hasn't hit positive temperatures for about 5 days now. It's going to be negative 10 at 2 a.m. Tomorrow, though, we will see positive numbers. We'll see, numbers that are in the positives and not with that little negative symbol in front of it. It's getting up to 10. After that, it's supposed to get up to 18. So I'm happy. But there's a theme with the first 2 questions here. Again, if you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, or whatever, you can always tune in live to these. You can actually fire your guesses into the comment section. If you get it right, we'll flash it across the screen and we'll give you credit. First question. What was the coldest Super Bowl ever played? Man, I forgot the Jeopardy music. My bad, everyone. Forgot the
They
Jeopardy music.
might
What
get
was
trouble
the-
for using that.
What was the coldest Super Bowl ever played?
It's got to be.
I'm curious if people are going to get this one right when Keegan posts it on TikTok.
I would imagine it was like an older one, probably at Lambeau, but I don't know.
The location is going to shock you with this one.
Oh, Miami, always Miami.
Yeah, right.
What was one
What,
of last week's answers?
Wait, coldest in the stadium or
Just
outside?
yeah, in the stadium. It's an outdoor game.
Okay.
the one where Namath upset the Colts. I don't know where it was though. If you looked it up, I remember him running off the field and there's like heat going off of him from like all the sweat and stuff. I don't know where that was though.
I got to be honest. I didn't even bother to look up who played. I just kind of.
Oh my gosh, boo! I don't know.
That's my bad. That's my bad. But the correct answer was Super Bowl VI. Super Bowl VI, January 16, 1972, at Tulane Stadium in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Really?
Yeah, shocking. It was unseasonably cold. Obviously, the air temperature at kickoff was 39 degrees Fahrenheit and 4 degrees Celsius.
Didn't they just have one in the Giants in what's that called?
44 degrees at kickoff.
No way.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah. I New Orleans, I was shocked. Absolutely shocked. Next question. Again, sticking with the theme here. What was the coldest World Series game ever played? And you can even if you just guess the World Series, I'll give you that.
2001.
You're
Yankees,
in the ballpark.
Diamondbacks.
I was gonna say 2000.
No, before 2000, 90s.
That's what I was saying. I was saying 90, 97.
Yes, 97. Eric, who was in the World Series in 97?
Uh,
I'm pretty sure there
it was the Cleveland Indians and Marlins.
Yes, correct.
And
Cleveland
the
Indians.
Marlins won.
Yes, it was Game 4. Official game time temperature was 38 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 3.3 degrees Celsius. And as of 2019, it remained the coldest World Series game in history. All right, next question.
Good job.
Now, this
Phil.
is completely.
Thanks. I just threw a random year. I had no.
This is completely off the topic here. So I took a little quiz today when I was a little bit bored, and I actually got 9 out of 10 questions right.
Oh, humble brag.
Yeah, humble brag, humble brag. So I'm hoping you guys get these right. What sport is called the sport of kings, in which players cannot play left-handed and is played in time periods called, oh, I didn't bother to look up the pronunciation of this, chukkas. That's Chukkas. What sport
where you
is
can't play
called the sport of kings?
and you can't play left-handed.
Can't play left-handed. Sport of kings. Throwing lots of emphasis on sport of kings.
And it's a physical sport.
I mean, it's not like chess.
Okay, that's what I want.
Literally going to say chess.
And you got this one right, Greg?
I did.
Really?
And it's not Taniket ball.
No, it's not. It's not. There was one that was Calvin ball though, and it was a Calvin and Hobbes based question that I picked up on.
What do they call it when they ride the horses and hit the ball?
Yes, it's called polo. That is
Yeah.
the correct
Oh,
answer.
nice.
Yes, sport of kings. Like I was trying to have it's all for the wealthy and affluent people.
Ah,
All right. In what sport does one game consist of 20 overs of 6 bowling deliveries per side, or a test match that can last 5 days?
oh, was that cricket?
Yes, cricket.
Yes, it is cricket. It's not that bad.
The days thing there.
Guys are 2 for 2. Last question. Keegan wanted me to up it to 5 questions for 5 days of the week.
Okay.
But there's 7 days of the week, so I don't really know. But shout out to Keegan and KeeganQuimbyWebDesign.com.
And his math.
Which aquatic Olympic sport did Harry Shearer, Martin Short, and Christopher Guest mock in a classic Saturday Night Live skit?
Can you say it one more time?
Which aquatic Olympic sport did Harry Shearer, Martin Short, and Christopher Guest mock in a classic Saturday Night Live skit? This was actually the one question I got wrong.
So they're mocking an Olympic water sport.
Yeah, clearly none of us have seen the skit.
Yeah.
No.
I'm just thinking of the water sports because there's like that one where they throw the ball into the net. There's synchronized
Water
polo. There's synchronized diving, synchronized swimming.
I would have to say something about like something to do with like rowing or something. I don't know how you could like simulate swimming on Saturday Night Live.
I'm gonna say. Oh, what did he get it?
I'm just waiting for guests. I haven't heard an
Whatever.
I'll say synchronized. Where they do a synchronized routine. I could see them doing that.
Synchronized swimming.
Yeah, synchronized swimming.
There's multiple different Olympic sports when it comes to synchronized, because synchronized swimming is when they're like dancing in the water, I believe, and synchronized diving is when they both like dive off the dive.
Right, how many people were in the skit?
3.
Oh,
yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
it's synchronized swimming. So for our older audience that has actually seen that skit, you're welcome.
LFG.
I guarantee Gary Gilmore is out there and he'll hear this on his drive into work someday and he'll be shouting at his Prius very early on with the correct answer. And he'll probably be making fun of Eric for not getting it. And
for sure.
Maybe even texting me the YouTube link to watch it. Who knows? But all right, that's our show.
I can work YouTube. I'm impressed.
Sometimes I think you can. But yeah, that's our show this week. Thanks for watching. Again, be sure to subscribe to our Patreon where you get early access to all our content. You can be a guest on the show. You can even choose topics that we talk about. Be sure to follow us on Instagram. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Twitcher. Did I say YouTube, Facebook, everything? And again, Mondays, you can tune in and watch our show live. You can comment along. And if we like what you're saying, we can actually pull those comments onto the show. So you can always interact with us. And be sure to share with us your stories. We're looking for the worst stories of people that lived above, below, or beside you. Basically, horror neighbor stories, I guess.
So, hey, if anyone was a roommate or lived next door to Greg Gilmore, send us your stories.
It's probably some good ones out there. Yeah. Also, midweek, be sure to catch me and Joey, where we'll talk about all the things soccer only. You're welcome. I just took the soccer separate because I felt like I was boring the people that I was having the show with. So that's me and Joey, and that'll be out midweek. Again, thanks for listening. Coast to Coast Podcast is hosted by Greg Gilmore. That's me, Phil Marino. The show is produced and roughly edited by yours truly. Feedback, you can always reach us via email at talkcoasttocoastpodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's talkcoasttocoastpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.